The one you defend all day is made of memory, reaction, and borrowed language. Before a thought says, "This is me," what are you? Wu Hsin points to something simple and fatal to the false self. The person you keep trying to fix is only a passing appearance in mind. You suffer because you protect a character that was never stable, never complete, never truly you. Look carefully at your own experience. A thought appears, a feeling rises, a role is remembered, and instantly you call it me. But did you create any of it, or did it simply show up on its own? I can notice the mind speaking, which means I am not the voice being heard. What is real in you does not begin with thought, and it does not end when thought goes silent. So what remains when the story stops repeating itself for one honest second? Not a new identity, not a better concept, not a spiritual version of the same illusion, just the silent fact of being, untouched by fear, untouched by history, untouched even by the search itself. And if the one who has been searching is only another thought, then who is here right now, still aware, still present, before the next thought arrives? You learned your name before you learned to look. You learned your story before you learned to question who was carrying it. Since then, almost every movement of your life has been organized around protecting an image in the mind, a wounded image, a proud image, a spiritual image, a successful image. But stop for a second and notice the raw fact of it. Every version of you that you defend is something you can observe. It appears, it changes, it fades, it returns. So why do you still treat it as your center? Wu Hsin keeps pointing to this silent fracture in ordinary identity. What you call yourself is not the seer, it is only something seen. And what is seen cannot be what you are in the deepest sense, because it arrives in awareness and disappears in awareness while awareness itself remains. This is why your inner conflict feels endless. One thought says, you are not enough. Another says, you must improve. Another says, you are healing. Another says, you are failing. Another says, you are finally becoming who you were meant to be. And you keep following each one like it has authority. But where did that authority come from? A thought appears from nowhere, stays for a moment, then leaves. That is its entire life. Yet the moment it uses the word I, you bow to it, you obey it, you suffer for it, you reshape your day around it. Can you see how strange that is? A passing mental movement claims ownership of your being, and instantly you become its servant. The prison is not the thought itself. The prison is the belief that the thought is speaking for what you are. Look at your life when you are alone and silent. Not the public version, not the role, not the performance, just the direct experience of being here. Before memory enters, before planning enters, before comparison enters, there is already presence. Simple, unforced. It does not ask for improvement. It does not introduce itself. It does not say, I am this type of person. It does not say, I need to become more worthy. Those are later additions. Those are decorations placed on top of something prior. You were trained to live in the decorations and ignore the foundation. That is why peace feels distant, not because it is far away, but because your attention has been captured by noise so completely that the obvious has started to feel hidden. The mind is loud, so you assume truth must also be loud. But what if the truest thing in you has never spoken at all? Notice how identity is built. A feeling rises in the body, a thought names it, memory joins in, then a story forms. This is happening to me. This always happens to me. That is just who I am. Within seconds, a passing sensation becomes a biography. This is how suffering hardens, not because pain appears, but because the mind turns pain into a person. And once pain becomes a person, you start defending it as your reality. You say, my fear, my abandonment, my failure, my sensitivity. But what is the my made of? Another thought, another claim, Another invisible sentence believed without investigation. Stay honest here. Did you create the fear, or did it simply arise? Did you create the thought, or did it simply appear? And if both came by themselves, why do you keep inserting an owner into the middle of what is already happening on its own? What you call control is often just delayed narration. Life moves, and then the mind reports on it as if it were the commander. A choice appears, an action happens, and then thought says, I did that. Another action happens, and thought says, I should not have done that. The voice arrives after the movement, claims the movement, and then judges the movement. This is the circle you have mistaken for selfhood. It is not that functioning stops. It is not that life becomes passive. It is that the imagined controller is exposed as commentary, not essence. When this begins to be seen, something softens immediately. The burden of holding yourself together starts to weaken. The burden of being the author of every inner weather pattern starts to crack. And inside that crack, something wordless becomes visible, something that has never been wounded by the drama of the narrator. This is why chasing a better identity never ends. The ego can wear any costume. It can call itself broken or awakened, lost or advanced, unworthy or chosen. It does not care what shape it takes as long as it remains the center of attention. Even your spiritual search can become its most refined disguise. I am progressing. I am purifying. I am closer. I had a deeper experience than before. Do you see it? The old illusion survives by becoming sacred. The same false center that once wanted praise now wants transcendence. The same voice that once compared careers now compares levels of consciousness. So the question becomes sharper. Are you seeking truth, or are you trying to preserve a more beautiful version of the one who seeks? Wu Hsin's uncompromising message cuts here. What is false cannot be perfected. It can only be seen through, and that seeing is not dramatic. It is not a mystical performance. It does not need thunder. It is more intimate than that. It happens when you finally stop moving away from direct experience. A thought appears, you see it. A fear appears, you see it. A desire appears, you see it. A memory appears, you see it. The seeing does not strain. It does not fight. It does not improve what appears. It simply remains as the open fact in which everything comes and goes. Right there, a very quiet revolution begins, because the more clearly you notice what changes, the less convincing it becomes as identity. And the less convincing identity becomes, the more absurd your lifelong struggle starts to look. All those years spent trying to fix a wave while ignoring the ocean. All those years spent decorating the mask while never asking who was aware of the mask. You may feel resistance here because the imagined self hears this as a threat. Of course it does. Its entire existence depends on being mistaken for you. So when silence begins to expose it, it reacts. It creates urgency. It creates doubt. It says, this is too abstract, too strange, too dangerous, too empty. It says you will lose your motivation, your relationships, your edge, your meaning. But look carefully. Has clinging to the false ever truly protected you? Has believing every thought made you free? Has defending your psychological image brought lasting rest? Or has it only kept you trapped inside repetition, calling it normal because it is familiar? The fear of losing yourself hides a deeper fact. What is real in you cannot be lost. Only what was imagined trembles when truth draws near. So remain with the simplest question, the one the mind cannot comfortably answer without turning it into philosophy. What are you before thought says anything about you? Not tomorrow, not after years of practice, now, before the next interpretation, before the next memory, before the next sentence forms. There is something undeniably present even when the mind does not know what to say. You do not have to create it. You do not have to achieve it. You do not have to make it more spiritual. It is already the case. That is what makes this so unbearable for the ego and so liberating for what is true. The truth was never hiding behind distance. It was hiding behind your addiction to mental movement. You were looking for fireworks while overlooking the silent light by which all fireworks are seen. And once this begins to dawn, your whole relationship with suffering changes. Pain may still come, grief may still come, the body may still tremble, tears may still rise, but the ancient habit of turning every passing state into a permanent self starts to weaken. There can be sadness without "I am broken." There can be fear without "I am a fearful person." There can be uncertainty without "my life is collapsing." Experience continues, but the false owner is less and less believable. This is not indifference. It is intimacy without imprisonment. It is feeling without fiction. It is life before the mind colonizes it with narrative. Can you sense how different that is? Not numbness, not withdrawal, not coldness. A deeper closeness, because now reality is no longer filtered through the desperate need to defend an image of who you are supposed to be. This is also why recognition often feels both ordinary and shocking. Ordinary because nothing new is being added. Shocking because you spent your entire life overlooking what is most obvious. Awareness is not an achievement. Being is not an accomplishment. Presence is not a reward. They do not arrive as trophies for the person. They are what remain when the person is not being compulsively asserted. That is why the mind keeps missing it. The mind wants an object, a climax, a special state it can claim. But this cannot be claimed. The moment it is claimed, it is converted into another mental possession. So the invitation is ruthless in its simplicity. Stop collecting descriptions of yourself and look at what is here before description. Stop polishing the mirror image and turn toward the clear seeing in which the mirror itself appears. You know this already in brief flashes, in the pause after deep exhaustion, in the stillness of early morning before the mind starts naming, in the moment of pure listening when you forget to maintain yourself, in the instant of wonder when beauty stops thought completely. In those moments, the usual me is absent or thin, yet nothing essential is missing. In fact, something feels more real, more intimate, more undeniable. Then thought returns and says, "I had an experience." Or it takes the living mystery and turns it into ownership again. But did the peace belong to a person, or did peace reveal itself when the person temporarily loosened? This matters, because the whole search can reverse right there. Instead of asking how the person can reach truth, you begin to see that truth is what remains when the person stops claiming center stage. So now the question becomes personal in the deepest possible way. Not personal as biography, but personal as direct seeing. Are you willing to doubt the voice you have trusted most? Are you willing to stop worshipping the commentator in your head? Are you willing to let a thought be only a thought, a feeling be only a feeling, a memory be only a memory? This is where the false self loses oxygen, not through violence, through clear observation, through non-cooperation with illusion, through the quiet refusal to keep saying, "This is me," every time the mind produces a new costume. And when that refusal becomes steady, what shines through is not an improved identity, but naked being itself, simple, awake, ungraspable, prior to every label you have ever worn and every wound you have ever repeated as a name. Stay with this longer than your mind wants to. Do not rush to convert it into a belief. Test it in your own experience. Watch what appears. Watch what disappears. Watch the one who claims both. Then ask again, with full honesty, what has actually remained the whole time. If something in these words has touched that silent recognition in you, stay close, subscribe, leave a comment with the one thought you are now beginning to question, and keep following this inquiry until even the one who follows it becomes transparent. Because once you truly see that you were never who you thought you were, what else in your life begins to fall away, and what remains when there is nothing left to protect?